everyone, welcome to Diksha Karnataka YouTube channel. I hope you all are doing really great. Today I have brought you a very important topic regarding your physics exam. It's just around the corner and right now we just need some important questions that we know that are short that will come in the examination, right? So we sat down, we analyzed the last few years, what kind of questions board asked, and in this video we are going to see those fixed questions that will definitely come in your examinations. There are high probability that these questions will be repeated, will be definitely coming in your exams. Okay, so let's see those chapter wise. Okay, so first starting with electric charges and field, in this video we will be seeing 2-3 marker questions. Okay, so first is state and explain Gauss law in electrostatics. We all know how important Gauss law is. We did the applications, but for 2-3 markers, state and explain will be enough. Okay, similarly write Coulomb's law in vector form. The vector form of Coulomb's law is again very important topic and very asked topic. Okay, explain the terms, state and explain Coulomb's law / these question can be asked in both ways. Okay, sketch the electric lines of force due to a point charge if Q is less than 0, greater than 0, or maybe for a dipole. Okay, so you can see that in this case they can also ask you about the to sketch the electric lines of dipole as well. Okay, then moving on to define electric dipole moment, its SI unit, torque on an electric dipole, properties of charges, properties of electric field lines. So all these basic topics, the small topics from where we build the chapter, these are very important. They can ask you directly to state that to the definitions of those topics. Okay, moving on, next we have the chapter electric potential and capacitance. So we have equipotential surfaces, very important, their definition, shape for different cases, and then properties, then capacitance, again a very important topic for parallel plate capacitor, combination of capacitors, expression for energy stored in a capacitor or energy density, then potential energy of a dipole in an external field, polar and non-polar molecules, their properties, their differences, they can ask you in 2 to 3 marker. Okay, next we have the chapter electric current, again drift velocity, very important topic, mobility and relaxation time. All these 3 topics are very important. Their understanding for the higher concepts is also important, but they can also ask you to state and to find. Okay, those questions are very important. Then limitations of Ohm's law, difference between current and current density, resistance and resistivity. We are studying this from class 10th. Okay, then the next chapter we have moving charges and magnetism. The most important topic of this chapter is Lorentz force, then angular frequency, radius of revolution for a charged particle, force on a current carrying wire, then Biot-Savart's law, Ampere's circuital law, galvanometer to ammeter or / voltmeter. How to convert galvanometer to ammeter or voltmeter, they can ask you. Okay, to connect it in series or to connect it in parallel. Okay, and all these laws, state those law, what are the state the terms that are defined on this law. Okay, they can ask you all those kind of questions. Next we have the chapter magnetism and matter, difference between dia, para, ferromagnetic materials, very easy. Then properties of magnetic field lines, again we are studying this from class 10th. Gauss law of magnetism, magnetization and magnetic intensity, magnetic susceptibility and relative permeability. Now their difference should be clear to you, their definitions should be clear to you, and they can ask the difference as well. Okay, their formulas should be clear to you. Then next we have electromagnetic induction, Faraday's law and Lenz's law, very important topic, expression for self-inductance, coil and magnet experiment, and motional EMF. Some of these topics are important. They can ask you according to the blueprint. We know 2 to 3 marker questions will be asked from this chapter. So out of these questions, it is high chance that they can ask. Okay, next we have alternating current. Now from this, according to the blueprint given by the board, no 2 to 3 marker questions will be asked from this chapter. Okay, but still the basics should still be clear. Okay, the basics should still be clear so that if by chance it comes, you don't have to suffer. And 5 marker we'll talk about in another video, but that also doesn't come in this chapter as well. Then we have EM waves for 2 to 3 marker, different applications of EM waves, and then displacement current. Although these are the 2 chapters, but displacement current is a very important topic. Okay. Next we have ray optics. In this topic, sign conventions are very important. The formula F equals to R by 2. Its derivation we know, it's very important, right? Then total internal reflection topic, again important. For 2 to 3 marker, these are small basic topics. So in 2 to 3 markers, they'll be asking you questions, conceptual questions based on that, or they can directly ask you the concept as well. Right? If it's a law, they can directly ask you to state and explain that law. Then we have telescope topic, then power of a lens. All these topics for ray optics are very important. Okay. Next we have wave optics. They can ask you Huygens principle, condition for maximum and minimum interference, coherent, incoherent sources of light. How do you differentiate if light source is coherent or incoherent? What are its properties? Okay, diffraction of light, Malus law. Sorry, and use of Polaroids, where the Polaroids are used. Okay, this is also a very asked question. Okay, then we have dual nature, in which they can ask you experimental Leonard or Hall-Watch observation of photoelectric effect. Then Einstein's explanation, important. Definition, these definitions can directly come. What are these? Photoelectric effect, threshold frequency, work function, stopping potential, and their graphs. The graph between stopping potential and frequency, the graph between current and intensity. Okay, so those graphs are also very important. Next we have atoms, 3 postulates of Bohr atomic model. We all remember it by heart now. Then limitation of Bohr's atom model, energy of orbiting electron in hydrogen atom, again an important topic. Then de Broglie explanation of the second postulate. Then these few questions are important for the 2 to 3 marker ones, and even if some different question come, they will relate with these topics only. Done. Next we have nuclei. In this we have binding energy and mass defect, a very important topic. We have that big formula, so you need to remember how that formula is formed. Okay, from there you can build the question up. Done. And related numericals, again for the formula, and features of nuclear force. We know how important this nuclear force is, where its applications are, nuclear fusion, nuclear fission. You should study that too. If you have time, you should go through that as well, but focus on these first. Done. Next we have semiconductors, our last chapter. Band theory of solids, energy gap and diagram is very important. Conductors have low energy gap, insulators have high energy gap, semiconductors have the midway. So what is the band gap energy of silicon, of germanium? Some of them you should know. Okay, then intrinsic and extrinsic semiconductors, their doping, what kind of elements are used to dope to make intrinsic or extrinsic semiconductor. Then p-type, n-type, their differences, what happens in the depletion region. Then biasing of a diode, forward biased, reverse biased, what happens to depletion region if it's forward biased, if it's reverse biased. Okay, now that is it. All these questions are 2 to 3 markers, so make sure you are not leaving any of these questions. Again, this is a lot of syllabus. You have to go through that, revise the whole, but these are some of the questions that you cannot manage to skip. Okay, from the past 10 years, 5 years, we've analyzed. These are the most important, most repeated questions and topics they have asked. So make sure you're doing all these questions and not skipping any of the topic. Okay, that is it for this video. I'll meet you in the next one.